Hey y'all, what's happening? It's me, Crazyfrankie, and I'd like to welcome you to my Week 14 4 key game picks. Before we get into week number 14, now obviously what happened last week in week number 13, obviously the theme of last week was definitely injuries. Obviously one of the bigger injuries that occurred was with the San Francisco 49ers. They lose Jimmy Garoppolo, and they lose him on one of the first drives of the game that the 49ers had against the Dolphins. From the latest reports at the time of this video, surprisingly, he's not going to require surgery, and there is a very slim chance he could be back. He could be back a lot sooner if the 49ers were to make a deep playoff run. But personally, though, if I have to be realistic at some point here, the 49ers, I think, are in a bit of deep trouble. This is a team, given that they have a good defense, a solid defense, possibly one of the best defenses in the league, if you don't have an offense to work that you could muster, it's really going to be hard for that high-powered, that strong defense that the 49ers have to get off the field if their defense stays on the field for a very, very long time. Now, luckily, in this last week in the case against the Dolphins, luckily the defense dominated and they weren't as worn out as a lot of people were thinking that they would. I mean, they hold the Dolphins to 17 points. Even without some sort of offense that they had since Garoppolo went down. So the 49ers definitely have some big question marks now if Brock Purdy, I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name correctly, can babysit the offense, kind of like in a way that Trent Dilfer did with the Ravens when they won their Super Bowl in 2000. So I don't know if this is kind of like the same type of scenario that the 49ers would have like the Ravens did in 2000. And another big injury from what I heard as of the time of this video is now I know Von Miller has been out since the Thanksgiving game, and he's going to be out for the rest of the season. That is a huge blow to the Bills defense here, especially coming off a huge win against the Pats last week in the last Thursday night game, and that really is troublesome for the Bills defense now that they're without their leader. So many players on that Bills defense now given that their captain is not there, is going to have to step up now if they want to be taken any more seriously to be a Super Bowl contender. Chiefs losing to the Bengals last week, it was a bit of a surprise though, given the fact that the Bengals weren't exactly 100%. But give credit to Joe Burrow and that offense. They have really, it was a very good game they had last week, and Burrow's already 3-0 against Patrick Mahomes. So yeah, you could say that the Bengals have owned the Chiefs. But I don't know if it will come down to it in January, which more than likely would meet again. And given the fact that the Bengals, when not everybody healthy, they really did a great job against that Kansas City offense here, but it was a back and forth affair. It was definitely one of the best games, one of the best games so far towards this part of the season. There's a lot of things I can get into from what happened last week in week number 13, and of course the Texas on the fly earlier in this part of the video, giving you the current updates of the NFC and AFC 1 through 7 seeds. So anyways, let's get into week number 14, shall we? Let's begin with key game number 1, and we're going to begin in the AFC East. It is the New York Jets versus the Buffalo Bills. And again, I'm talking about the Bills. Mike White, given his last performance against the Vikings, it didn't turn out as good as it did 2 weeks ago. White went 31 of 57, 369 yards, no touchdowns, but 2 interceptions in that game. And that was huge. That was kind of not his best performance, but it really was not that good. Now, the Bills, Josh Allen last week, 22 of 33, 223 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Bills offense really did a number on the Pats defense. Patriots had no answer for the Bills offense, and the Bills defense, even without Von Miller, was able to hold the Pats pretty well. This is going to be a little bit of a different case down there. Now, the Bills have already lost to the Jets earlier in the season. So now, of course, this is now the second meeting, and obviously for the Jets, it's jockeying for playoff positioning here. And obviously, the Dolphins are definitely going to be rooting for the Jets, even though they're rivals themselves. Obviously, to get back that first place in the AFC East. So a lot is on the line for both these two teams. Obviously, for the Bills is to try to keep to keep the lead in the AFC East division, but also to hold that number 1 seed. It's a tough one here. Josh Allen and that offense really has to muster more points than they did in the first meeting against the Jets. And the Jets defense is going to have to step up one more time and try to get to Josh Allen again to really hold him at bay. But when it comes down to second meetings, usually it would end up being more evenly split. And who's to say that these two teams will meet again in the postseason? Given to see if the Jets can get one of the 3 wild cards. I got to make a pick in this game here. I'm going to pick the Bills here. I think the Bills will learn their lesson from the first meeting they had against the Jets. I think that the offense will get to the Jets defense here. I think they will pick them apart this time around. And usually at home, the Bills do very well at home. The Jets haven't won in Buffalo in quite a long time. So odds are the Jets are odds are stacked against them. The Bills are a 9-point favorite in this one here, and I pretty much agree with that. Won't be surprised if that number goes down a bit lower, but I would say I'm going to pick the Bills here at -9 here. Bills over the Jets. All right, key game number 2, going to the NFC East now. The Philadelphia Eagles versus the New York Giants. Jalen Hurts last week, 29 of 39, 380 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. Daniel Jones for the Giants in his last game, 25 of 31, 200 yards, 1 touchdown, and no interceptions in a tie that they had with the Commanders. Eagles are a 6.5-point favorite, and it wouldn't surprise me if it goes a little bit higher. The Giants have really struggled in their last 5 games. Despite the great start they had at the beginning of the season, they have really hit a brick wall lately. They're not scoring as much points as often. I know they're dealing with some injuries up front, and defense-wise, they really are being torn apart in the secondary. And this could not have come at a worse time for the Giants now, especially given how the Eagles basically tore apart the Titans last week in a game that wasn't even close. Eagles, like I said, are a 6.5-point favorite in this one here. The Giants are going to have to really do a lot to stop that Philly offense here. I don't know if this will be a close game or not, because given the fact that I think a lot of you know who I'm going to pick in this game here, it's important for the Giants right now as much as it is for the Eagles, is because the Giants are trying to stay in the hunt for a playoff spot, as obviously those 3 wild cards in the NFC East is really becoming quite a race right now at the moment. They know they're not going to catch the Eagles for the division. Obviously, they're fighting for a playoff spot here. I don't think the Giants have enough to beat this high-powered Eagle offense. I wouldn't be a little surprised if this actually becomes a football game here, but I'm picking the Eagles here. I think the Eagles are going to be too much for the Giants in this one here. It's Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley are going to... It wouldn't surprise me if this game does go back and forth, but I don't know if I can trust the Giants' defense right now. They've really struggled. They had a hard time with the Commanders last week, and who's to say how much trouble they're going to have against the Eagles in this one here. I'm picking the Eagles at -6.5 here. This is kind of an easy pick here. Go with the Eagles over the Giants. Key game number 3, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers versus the San Francisco 49ers. The Niners are I don't know if I want to say if they're a slight favorite in this one here. They are favored by 3.5 here. But given the fact that number should be much, much lower, keep in mind between these two teams. Now, the 49ers kind of do have a better defense than the Bucs. But I would say that the Bucs defense can they can kind of go toe-to-toe with their defense. Now, Tom Brady in his last game, 36 of 54, 281 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. He really struggled last week against the Saints. Their offense really did not get going until the 4th quarter, and they barely won by a touchdown. Now, obviously, for the 49ers side, obviously, they have to rely on Brock Purdy now because we don't know if Jimmy G's going to be coming back. Even though they're saying, it's still kind of a season-ending injury for him, given the fact we're so late in the season. Now, Brock Purdy went 25 of 37, 210 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 interception. This is going to be a real test for that Tampa Bay offense against that very, very tough Frisco defense here. And the 49ers defense right now, they're pretty healthy right now. They're probably the healthiest defense right now in the league. But given how this is important for Tom Brady now, obviously to make sure they stay ahead in the NFC South, And obviously the 49ers are trying to wrap up the NFC West as well, but obviously they are still within they're still in a dogfight with the Seahawks here. I don't know if I want to say if this game's a toss-up or not, but given the fact that Tampa Bay's offense has really struggled in their last few games, and I'm pretty sure a lot of you are thinking, well, you pick the 49ers this one if you're praising the 49ers defense that much. Knowing that Tom Brady, he's from Northern California, and the fact that he loves playing up there against the 49ers and all of that, you never could count out on what he can do right now. I know that their offense is not as solid that he's had in a while, but it's just something about Brady and playing in Northern California. Obviously, look, he's had a pretty good track record against the 49ers. Obviously, he's got 2 losses to them. He lost 2 times to the Niners. But I would say, look, if the 49ers offense has trouble scoring points, obviously because you're now relying on Brock Purdy now that Garoppolo's out, and if the defense stays a lot longer on the field, and that's going to be really key right now, if Briscoe's defense stays much longer on the field. And don't be surprised I'm not going to be surprised at all if Brady with the time of possession in this game. I think it's going to be crucial because if the 49ers have trouble scoring points here, I like the Buccaneers in this game. Even though you've got to say, what about the Frisco's defense? Aren't they capable of probably stopping Brady given that they haven't played well? You can make a case for that. But if Brady keeps the Niners defense on the field for a long time, and if the 49ers struggle offensively, I like the Buccaneers in this game. I think I'm going to go with the upset here. I think it's going to be a 3-point game here. The Niners are 3.5, but I'm actually going to take the Buccaneers plus 3.5. I think the Niners defense, I think Tom Brady will find a way to keep that offense longer. I think, to me, the time of possession is going to be key for the Niners defense. They got to get off the field, even though they have a good defense there. But if they struggle offensively scoring points, I'm picking the Buccaneers in this game here. And that's going to be my pick in this game here. I'm going to take the Buccaneers over the 49ers. And key game number 4. It is the Miami Dolphins versus the LA Chargers. I'm actually going to keep this one short and bittersweet on this one here. Now, Tua in his last game against the 49ers, 18 of 33, 295 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Herbert in his last game against the Raiders basically in a dismal performance. I don't want to put a lot of negativity on Justin Herbert because really their offensive line is horrible. Herbert was 28 of 47, 335 yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 interception. Well, actually, no interceptions. Scratch that. What I just said right now, the Chargers' offensive line is so horrible. Justin Herbert practically was on the ground a lot against that Raiders defense. And given how much negativity I've given the Raiders defense a long time, they actually played defense last week against the Chargers. And that is the major problem with the Chargers offense. If they can't protect Herbert, what do you think they're going to do? What do you think their defense is going to do against Miami here? Chargers defense supposed to be good this season. Obviously, they have not lived up to their expectations here. Chargers defense they just can't stop the run, and they're just having trouble. It is hard for me to talk about the Chargers this way because I do follow them very closely. And obviously the way the Dolphins are. The Dolphins are no joke. They are a 3-point favorite in this one here, and it is absolutely right. They're more likely to win by a field goal here in this game here if the Chargers can somehow make it a game. But the way that the Miami offense, the way of Tua and Tyreek Hill, that with that sort of tandem that they have, the Chargers are really going to have a tough time against the Dolphins here. And the Chargers right now are fighting for their playoff lives as well as the Dolphins are. Obviously, Dolphins are in a much better position than the Chargers are. It's going to be very quick here. I'm picking the Miami Dolphins. I have no choice in here. The Chargers' offensive line is horrible. They can't protect Herbert. And I don't know if this Charger defense can get to Tua, though given how the Dolphins' offense has been in the last few games, they've been pretty good. And I think, to me, the Chargers are in deep trouble here. Obviously, they're pretty much now on the verge of missing the playoffs again. I'm going to have to face reality on this one here. I would be shocked if the Chargers can pull the upset in this game, but I just don't see it happening here. The Miami offense is just too good. Chargers defense, they're already banged up in the secondary, and they're obviously having trouble getting to the quarterback. So no question, I'm going to go with the Dolphins here. Dolphins over the Chargers. All right, everybody, that wraps up my 4 key game picks for week number 14. Please check the description below for all of my week 14 picks. And I'll talk to you guys next week when I make my picks for week number 15. Take care and enjoy your football weekend.